So hello everyone and welcome. My name is Mary Love. I am a singer-songwriter and this is my Talks with Creative series. And today we're going to be speaking with George Saenz, who is an incredible musician and has such a great story to tell. And he and I have been friends for a long time and have worked together on a bunch of different projects. So I'm so excited to introduce him to you and share his work with you. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you for having me.
So let's just start from the very beginning. So tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you were born, where you grew up, and a little bit kind of about your childhood and if you knew early on that like being a musician was going to be your path.
Yeah, sure. I was born in South Texas in a city called Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi, Texas is along the Gulf of Mexico on the southeast part of Texas, but it's a short way from there to the Mexican border. And I spent a few years there in Corpus Christi before moving to Laredo, Texas. My father was at that time working with a company that transferred him over to a job in Laredo. And so we moved out to Laredo when I was about 8 or 9. And then I feel like I grew up more in Laredo because I spent more of my adolescent years there and kind of grew up there, went to, elementary school and middle school and high school. When I was young, I started fiddling around with the piano. My parents had this little Casio keyboard. But those those little Casio keyboards with the funny sounds in it and stuff like that. And I loved it. I kind of gravitated towards that. I would sit and try to come out with little melodies. And that was probably when I was about 2.5 or 3. And then after moving to Laredo, when I was a little older, I started playing a lot more piano and coming up with little songs on my own, maybe like around 9 or 10 years old. And not writing, but coming up with little lyrics, stuff like that, and singing along to basically were little kid songs that I would just make up on the spot. I was
Can I pause for a second?
Sure.
Do you remember any of those little kid songs? And would you sing one for us?
I don't remember them, but I remember. Oh, I remember singing a song to my sister. My sister's name is Deborah Lee.
Okay.
And I remember singing a song to her. Deborah Lee, won't you be true? Won't you be true? And I remember my mom says that I wrote a song called The Big Truck.
Oh, nice.
And I used to sing, it only had those words, the big truck, the big truck, the big truck, the big truck. And apparently I would like play around on this little small guitar that I had. So, just being creative like that with music was kind of something that I always liked to do throughout my childhood.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, those little clues. And did your parents pick up on those clues that you were musically inclined?
Well, I mean, they definitely knew that I loved playing around with it and loved playing music. They saw that I was gravitating to that a lot. And I also dabbled a little bit when I was a little older, maybe in like 6th grade or in 7th grade or 5th and 6th grade, something like that, in musical theater. We had this community theater in Laredo called the Laredo Little Theater, which is still there. And I was in the Babes in Toyland. There was a show called Babes in Toyland, which was kind of like a Christmas show. And then Oliver. We did Oliver, and I auditioned and got the part to play Oliver, like the lead role.
Oh.
And now that I think back to it, I don't know how I did it because it's like a huge book to learn, and there's a lot of songs. And I remember it was like months of like training, like vocal training, going to vocal classes with not just by myself, but with the cast, you know?
Right.
And all these vocal rehearsals, and it must have been like hours and hours of work.
Wow.
And I had a blast. I had a blast doing that.
Okay.
But I think that experience definitely helped me feel good on stage, and it helps for the future as well when you're any type of performer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge role to play, and it sounds like you just got comfortable being on stage, and also like the way your face lit up as you were talking about the theater, like maybe there was some sense of community that you felt kind of early on, because watching you as a colleague and a fellow musician, like I feel like you get so much from being around other musicians and being a part of that kind of creative community, which I think is something so special and unique and really kind of hard to describe. But I feel like you always like weave yourself in and out of those communities so well.
Yeah, I try. It's something that I've had some experience with in the past, luckily, and it's all helped in some way. I went to a public school. Texas has a really good music program in the public school system. Music and arts in general. Mm-hmm. If you want to learn an instrument and you're interested in music, then you can. They even give you instruments to learn on. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't even have to buy your own instruments. You show up to school the first day, and if you're enrolled in band, they say, okay, what instrument do you want to play? And it's like, what? Really? And they have all these instruments out there. Well, I wanted to play saxophone, you know? And so I said, I want to play sax because that was cool.
Right.
And the band director said, sorry, all the sax are taken. So I was like, well, I want to play trumpet then. And he said, sorry, all the trumpets are taken. I said, well, what's left? And he said, you could play the tuba or the trombone.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I don't want to play tuba, you know. That just wasn't. But I remember that my dad, when he was in high school, he played the trombone in the band, the high school band.
Oh.
And he would always tell me that. He would always remind me that he was a trombone player, you know. And so I said, well, okay, I'll play the trombone then, because at least Dad played the trombone. Maybe he can help me or something. You know. Yeah, because it's like it's a beautiful instrument, but it's extremely hard to play and to maintain. You know. Yeah, but it's a gorgeous instrument, and if you can play it really well, that's a special thing. You know. Yeah. It was around the same time that I picked up the button accordion. And the button accordion was because I always grew up in a household that listened to lots of Tex-Mex music and Mexican music on the radio. And we also listened to other things, but that was something that was unique to the area that we grew up in. So I remember being kind of fascinated by it, and the accordion was always a part of that music. And my father ended up buying a button accordion at a garage sale in Corpus Christi back when I was a little kid. And so one day when I was, I don't know, maybe like 11 or 12, I found it in the garage. And it was funny because it was super old, kind of falling apart. And whoever sold it to him had put black duct tape on some of the bellow to kind of hold it together. And it fascinated me, so I started learning that. And I think it was around that time when I started learning those two instruments that I knew that that's what I wanted to do, that I wanted to do music. I remember as soon as I would get home, then I would start thinking about music and start doing music.
So you were 12, basically, when you knew.
Yeah, and that was easy for me because it was easy for me to choose.
Right. Yeah.
There was nothing else that interested me as that much to that I would dedicate my life to it.
Go directly, like what's the story from like 7th grade to Berkeley? How did?
Well, when I was in high school, I learned a lot musically because I went to an arts high school, like a magnet school for the fine arts, and there I was able to study the trombone with a teacher that I had private lessons with basically every day, and studying with a professor there that kind of changed the way I viewed music. And his name is John Ryman, and he's a tuba player, trombone player. And I was able to kind of hone in on my studies with the trombone with this teacher. But at the same time, I had a home high school that I attended for the second half of the day. So I would be going, I would go to two schools every day. I would go to the art school in the morning and then my home school in the afternoon. Of course, I was in the band, like the marching band during football season, and then in concert band in the spring season.
Okay.
But besides those, they had a jazz band that I could join, and they had a mariachi band that I could join. And I always loved mariachi music, and they had in South Texas, most of the schools have a high school mariachi program. So students that are interested can take it. And that's where I learned a lot of the Mexican instruments that I grew up playing. And I started learning how to play jazz with the jazz band there. And so it was all these different avenues that I was getting. I was getting all these different little schools, that I was learning from. At the same time, I was hanging out with friends in Laredo that went to my high school that were also in those same bands that were into other styles of music, like trio music from Mexico or Latin America, which is basically bolero music, old romantic ballads. So we formed the trio, me and two of my friends, and we sang in all the three-part vocal harmonies and all playing guitars and all that. So that was another style of music that I was starting to learn and kind of dive into. So it was kind of like a melting pot of all these different things that I was picking up from the environment that I was around. And that gave me a lot of strength because I learned a lot basically in 4 years. And I still stay in touch with all of my teachers, with a lot of the teachers that are down there. And when I go down to Laredo, I'll talk to the kids and I'll do some clinics down there with them as much as I can when I go. All the teachers they're wonderful because they're all open-minded and they bring a sense of the world to this little small school because they've all been they've all had so much experience in like the world of classical music, for example, which is something that is not easy to find in a small city in South Texas. But when you have teachers that are well versed in that world come and teach there, then it kind of opens up the world to students that would never really get an opportunity to hear that type of music or even play in an orchestra, for example. So it's a very, very wonderful institution that they have going down there. And so I never thought that I was going to get accepted at Berkeley, but I guess the grades that I had weren't that bad, and I guess that I had a good audition because in came the acceptance letter. And that was a surprise to me. It was a surprise. But yeah, I think back then I was ready to leave Texas and ready to experience other things. But I had a lot of good, even before I came to Berkeley, I was working on the road with a local Tex-Mex band from San Antonio, and playing a lot around the state. And so I was kind of I was spending more time playing professionally instead of going to school. But I learned a lot through those years as well to kind of prime me for the future,
So you went to Boston, you studied at Berkeley, and you did jazz composition there, right?
And performance. Yeah. And then I left in 2008. I graduated in 2008, and 2009, I moved to New York.
So you work with Lila Downs, who's a Mexican singer.
Lila she's a Mexican-American vocalist and composer, and also actress and author. She's amazing. She's done a million things. But she was born, I think she was born in Oaxaca, and that's where her mom is from. And her dad is from Minnesota, and he was an art professor at the University of Minnesota. Mm-hmm. And so she grew up also in the United States throughout different periods of her life. She was here, but she began singing her singing career here in the U.S. and in New York. And she started gathering a following in the early 2000s and kind of worked her way up. And now she's kind of at a stardom level, especially in Mexico. She's very well known in Europe as well, and all throughout the Americas, and a lot through the United States as well. But in Mexico, she's kind of like one of the top stars now. Yeah. And it's been exciting working with her. I've been working with her since 2012. I think 2012. Yeah, 2012. And it's gone by like that. It's crazy. It's gone by so fast. Because I remember when I was like the new guy, I was like the kid. Like, I was like the new guy in the band. I always felt like that. But now, there's already been like a couple other new guys after me. So now I finally feel like, all right, okay, now I'm not one of the new guys anymore.
Wow. Yeah, no, I got to see her when I was in Oaxaca last year. So, but yeah, her stage presence is what really impressed me. I mean, I'm so impressed by her creativity and also the way she makes music for the people, I mean,
right.
I love that. And I love how she studies anthropology and really brings that into her music. And but I think just what really struck me was her command on stage and how connected she was to her audience. It was really beautiful. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's magical playing shows with her. There's times where she can connect with the crowd insanely well.
Yeah.
And from the moment that she walks out on stage.
Right.
And you can see it from the stage as a band member, on stage playing and looking. She's always standing out in front. But all you have to do is look out into the crowd, and you notice that every single person, their eyes are glued on her, and no matter where she walks, they're gonna follow.
Yeah.
And everybody usually has a smile on their face, or they're dancing, or they're singing, or she has that ability to automatically inspire that type of connection, which is something that's really hard to do.
Right.
As an artist, it's hard to do that. I mean, it's one thing to get people to just look at you, but to connect, to have that emotional connection or automatic connection is something that she's a master of.
Right. Yeah.
And it's amazing to see that unfold while it's happening. I have to restrain myself at times from taking video from my phone just to capture this moment. There's times, and I've gotten some before. One of my favorite videos is a video that I took candidly from stage when we were playing at Gran Rex Theater in Buenos Aires, and which is a insanely popular venue in Buenos Aires. And she was singing Paloma Negra, one of her most popular rancheras, and the whole crowd was singing with her, and that was one of those magical moments. And got my phone and just started taking video, and it was an incredible experience.
What have you learned from working with her? Like, what's one of like the biggest kind of takeaways from, I mean, it's been over 8 years now that you guys have been working together. Like, what have you learned about playing in a band, or kind of the role that you play within a whole team of people being brought together to create a production like that?
Well, I think for me, one of the most important things that I've learned to value is the ability to be able to bring your A game all the time and be ready for anything when you're on stage. It's happened a lot where Leela will get inspired on the moment during a show to sing a certain song that isn't on the set list. And either it'll happen like right before the show or during sound check right before, and everybody, and she'll say out of nowhere, she'll just call this song that we haven't even reviewed, and she'll say, how about we play that song? And all of us, even though inside we're like, oh crap, what are we, we always say like, yes, for sure, let's do it. We'll do it.
That's great.
And then, sound check ends, we go backstage before the show, and then everybody's like writing down the chords and figuring out the part, and then we come back on stage and we make it happen. Make it happen like if it was never even an issue. That's one of the most important things that I've learned, because when I first joined the band, I saw it. For me, I was always freaking out. I was like, what song? Wait, which one? Oh shit. Oh. And everybody I remember would be like, oh yeah, it's this song. We played it before. It's in this key. And I'm like, okay, and sometimes I would like play it right. Sometimes I would find the chart on time if I could. But I would always make sure that I could pull it off.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. And there's going to be times where sometimes it doesn't come out as you hoped. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely not perfect, but for the most part, you have to be ready to receive those like audibles out of nowhere, those change of plans out of nowhere, and you have to pull it off. There's no kind of ifs, ands, or buts about it. It just has to happen.
Every time you do that, you grow just a little bit more, like as a person and as a musician.
Right. And sometimes it seems like sometimes it can be stressful. Mm-hmm. Like in the moment, it's stressful, and sometimes before shows, you might think to yourself, okay, I have to be prepared for any curveballs, like any new things that are coming that might come out of nowhere. I have to be prepared for it. And then the more you kind of get in that mindset, mm-hmm. when it happens, you take it in stride, You
really learn to trust yourself.
And also you expand, because like you said, afterwards you feel like a little stronger. It's like you gain this, of course it's confidence, but it feels heavier than that. It feels like you gain traction. You gain this sort of traction where the more that happens, the less it feels like a bump. It's like the bump starts feeling a little smaller, and you can smooth things out.
Yeah, and I think that's why, studying music, whether it's your profession or not, like, is so good for you, because every time you learn a new piece of music, all these different things happen in your brain, and like you're connecting different like synapses, you're connecting the right and the left hemisphere of your brain, and it's just helping you build confidence and giving you a little bit more of a sense of accomplishment every single time. So I just think as you grow as a musician, like you grow as a human being. There's another project that you are involved in that is so cool. I've seen you guys perform a bunch of years back called Calpuli Mexican Dance Company.
Yes.
You are the music director for them.
For
And
Calpuli.
yeah, and you also play whatever they need you to play. Because I remember you were playing like a guitarrón. Because yeah. So tell us about this project.
Well, when I first moved to New York, it was one of my first gigs as a musician. I joined the band. There was another musical director back then, Sinoe Padilla, which is a dear friend of mine. He was the musical director back then, and so he hired me as one of the musicians to play in the band because Calpuli likes to perform their shows with live music instead of recorded music, like most dance companies do. Mm-hmm. So I joined the band and started playing with Calpuli. We even, the first year or the second year that I was with them, we went and played at Silver Dollar City, which is a theme park in Branson, Missouri, which doesn't even exist anymore. I think they went out of business, but it wasn't because of us. It was a great experience, actually. It was, we went for 5 weeks to play. It was in the summer, and they were a theme park, so it's like Six Flags, how they have live music. You know how they have like stages with live music, and you can come hear a show. And so we got hired to go and play. I think it was 1 or 2 shows a day, and we had like 2 days off a week. And we got to hang out in the theme park and see all the other bands. There was bands from all over the world that were playing that summer. So it was a great experience. We did that, and we played a bunch in New York, and then Sinoe left the company, and then they hired me as musical director in 2012, and I've been there as musical director for the rest of the time, and it's been definitely an experience that made me have to grow because it's definitely a difficult job, very rewarding, but it's very difficult. It takes a lot of time and discipline, and a lot of hard work, a lot of planning, lots of scheduling, lots of rehearsals and writing, lots of writing music and arranging. But it's one of those experiences that take you out of your comfort zone, Yeah. For me, playing music, no matter how hard the music is, that's my comfort zone, But being the musical director, of the company kind of changed everything, and added a whole bunch of responsibilities. So it was very, very good because it forced me to learn how to work in different capacities, learn how to definitely hone my skills as a leader, and communicator. You have to keep everything together to make sure that everything works together. Yeah. So a very good learning experience, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it a bunch. Unfortunately, right now we're not doing anything. There's no shows for the foreseeable future, but hopefully next year we'll have a chance to perform again. So right now we're just waiting. But yeah, it's a fascinating job. I have to write most of the music, or arrange and do charts, and arrange rehearsals, and but it's been a lot of fun. Last year we recorded our first album, Calpuli Mexican Dance Company Banda album, and it's a compilation of music from different shows that we've done over the years. So that's a lot of fun. And then I'm looking forward to starting up again,
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately.
When you were becoming like director, that's when you were also producing Not at War, my second album for me. So you had a lot on your plate. And so George produced Not at War, my second album. He also played accordion and bass on that album. So he is a very, very busy guy.
Well, I try to stay that way.
Yeah, that's the idea, right? It's the name of the game. And the performance that I saw you guys do, I think it was sometime in like 2011. And you did all the different like regions of Mexico. Like you brought, the performance was, you did all the folk dances of maybe not every region of Mexico, because I know there's so many, but it was so awesome. It was like a little tour of Mexico. Music and the dance, and you wore full costume.
Mm-hmm. We were dressed in the mariachi traje, the charro suit, like they do in traditional mariachi bands. We don't always dress like that for that particular show. That was our wardrobe. Yeah. And we did music from different regions of Mexico. I can't remember if I played accordion on that show. Did I?
I think you were playing guitarrón because...
Playing the guitarrón, yeah. But we did music for that show. We did music from the Norte region, which is like the northern states of Mexico, along the border. And then we did music from Veracruz, which is the style's called son jarocho, which is from the state of Veracruz on the eastern coast. We did music from Michoacán, the state of Michoacán.
And what's the style of music there, Michoacán?
There's it's called son de tarima.
Okay.
Son de tarima, yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen the viejitos dance, but they have a nice dance where they wear costumes, a mask of like old people. They look like old people's faces, and they dance kind of hunchback like that with a cane and a big sombrero, and it's called Baile de los Viejitos. That comes from Michoacán.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's funny, yeah. And then of course we play music from Jalisco, which is the style of mariachi.
Okay.
The state of Jalisco. And let's see, I believe we also did Huasteca, which is the northwestern region in the mountains, the northeastern region, mountain music called Huasteca, which has a lot of great violin work and like yodel style singing. Not really yodel, but lots of falsetto singing.
Mm.
Yeah, that was a fun show. I remember that.
It was amazing. It blew me away. And the music of the Norte, what style of music is that?
It's got different rhythms in it, but there's lots of button accordion in it. Usually, traditionally, it's button accordion, okay. But you can also use violin on it, and some trumpet sometimes, but mostly just violin and accordion. Sometimes some saxophone as well. And the rhythms that are played are like the polka. Mm. They use the polka a lot. There's a style called redova, which is basically like a waltz, a 3/4 tempo waltz, but it's instrumental. There's no lyrics, just instrumental music. Then there's another style rhythm called huapango, which is spelled with an H, Huapango, huapango. And that's a 6/8 rhythm that is native to Mexico. Okay. It's similar to lots of other Latin American 6/8 rhythms, right. But the huapango is distinctly Mexican style. And those are just different rhythms that are within the style of norteño. You also have the huapango is usually in every single style of region in Mexico. Okay. So the huapango is also played in, for example, the música de viento or the brass bands of Oaxaca. You were in Oaxaca, were you?
Yeah.
Did you get to hear any of the bands, the community bands, like the wind bands with the horns?
I did in when I was in Oaxaca City for like a week.
Yeah.
It's like if somebody graduates or like they're celebrating, they do it for like weeks at a time, and they go on the street and the band is playing.
Yeah.
Recuerdo el nombre. It's a very specific name, and I can't remember. But yes, so I did. I saw it in Oaxaca City. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I have a few videos of it. It was just like so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back. I've only been once, and I went for one day to play a gig, and then I had to leave back to Mexico City because I was playing the next day over there. I'd love to go back.
Well, it's funny because I wanted to see, because where I was learning to surf. So I was in Puerto Escondido, which is a very, very small town, and there's not like a ton of music there. There's a few street musicians I met who were awesome. But going to Oaxaca City, I was like, I was just there for the weekend, and I was trying to explore as much music as I could. So I went to see this concert, but like the date was like posted wrong in the paper. So I showed up, I missed the show, but I started talking to one of the musicians, and he
Wow.
by hand, yeah.
Beautiful. Do you know his name?
Isaac. Do you know Altepe is his group?
Oh, okay. The Son Jarocho group?
Yeah.
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 I don't know him, but that's interesting. That's a beautiful looking jarana. He made that himself.
He made it himself, yeah. Like the group put them together, and they put all these events together where they get the community to play them, and they do dances. But so that's the amazing Calpulli Mexican Dance Company. So what does creativity mean to you?
Creativity to me can be any type of activity where you are creating something that wasn't there before. And it can be anything. It can be grabbing a pencil and tracing something on a piece of paper, or it could be writing a few words of thought. Something that wasn't there before that you can produce, either tangible or not tangible. And so I like to try to stay creative every day, even if it's just something small, because I believe that after every time you do something creative, you get some type of a reward back.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether the little sketch that you made ends up crumpled in the trash and you never see it again. It's looking at it after it's done, or hearing it back after it's done. If you recorded a little passage on a piano or on your violin or on your guitar, something that you give birth to that wasn't there before, is how I like to think about creativity. And you can do it with anything. There's a million different ways that you can do it. I like how people are creative with the clothes that they wear. The things that a lot of people make things for themselves to wear. They make their own jewelry or clothes for that matter. So it can be so many things. I look at my nephew, the youngest nephew of mine that just turned 1. He likes to grab crayons and just like do stuff on the page that it makes absolutely no sense, but it's doing something for him. It's making him feel a certain way by doing it, even if it's just a bunch of scribble, So it's something that comes natural to us. I think a lot of people get into a rut by thinking or feeling that they're absolutely void of creativity. Even I have felt like that. I feel like that many times, where I just feel completely empty. I'm just like, I'm completely empty. There's nothing there.
Okay, so let's pause for a second. So for any of you out there who think that they aren't creative, George is like one of the most creative people I know and is always making something new. And sometimes he even has days where he doesn't feel creative. So you can all make something no matter what it is, you know, and feel that sense of satisfaction within you.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Even,
Human.
I mean, sometimes it happens on those days when you feel completely empty or like void of anything creative. If you just kind of force yourself to sit down through that and feel it and then try to do something anyway,
right.
you notice that you might come up with something that maybe if you even don't like it that much, you still got something out. I think even that's kind of a win.
Right.
You know, there's not really a lose. I think you kind of only really lose out if you don't try to do anything.
Right.
But if you try, even if you do something that you don't really like, well, it's just another little piece that you can add to a little scrapbook or something, and forget about it if you want, but it's something that's there.
Right. And that's going to make the next song better, or the next project better, or the next whatever the next thing is. Like if you do something you don't like, you know, 10 things from from that will be really good, you know, so it just helps you get better every single time.
Yeah. Sometimes I find that if I start something and I don't finish it and I stop and then I start something new, sometimes I find that once I start doing that something new starts feeling like it's missing something. And then I can find something in the piece that I didn't finish from before that I can use for that.
Right.
But
just sitting down and trying, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of the first step.
And sitting through that discomfort of, I can't do this. Like, you know, we have so many different thoughts and emotions. We're not just one of them.
Yeah, we're not always going to feel inspired.
Yeah.
If you were always inspired, then the inspiration would kind of become dull, right?
Right. Do you have the same, like, I always feel like there's a side of me that's trying to be organized and, you know, the right brain. And then there's the creative side of me that's like, whee, is like the total rebel and like, you know, staying out late or whatever and just not doing all the homework, like just wants to be inspired, you know. And those sides of me are just like, they're always fighting. It's really hard to get along. I don't know how you feel, but
no, they're not supposed to get along. They're not supposed to get along. Yeah. I mean, it's two different parts of you. Both exist.
Yeah. What's the value of music within a community? And what service do you think music provides for people?
Okay, well, community-wise, it's very important. It's in lots of different parts of community. There's, you know, like first of all, it brings people together for the most part, no matter what capacity. Whether you're singing music at church, you know, like in a church choir or a church band on every Sunday when you go to church, well, you're all there together. You're there every week. You're doing it together. If you're doing it in like a community chorus or a community choir or like a university, like volunteer band or something like that, that's people coming together. When you go to a concert, to go hear a concert, everybody goes there together to go hear the concert. It's always bringing people together. So it's very important to the community when it comes to the community, because it's that common thread, you know. Music is therapy, I think. It's a form of therapy. For any part of your life, for any type of feeling that you have. It's good when you're feeling sad. It's good when you're feeling happy. It feels when you're super depressed. You know, whether it makes you feel worse or better is another topic. but
feel understood.
makes you feel understood. Yeah, exactly. It makes you feel understood.
That you're not,
that you're not alone. It gives you hope. But I can't imagine not really listening to music. I usually find that all the time I listen to music, it uplifts me in a certain way.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it makes me nostalgic and like gets me a little sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like music can get me a little sad sometimes. But if I don't want to feel sad, then I don't listen to music that I know will make me feel sad.
Thank you again for being here and for having this conversation with me. I feel like we could talk for 5 or 6 more hours, which we will.
I know.
Yeah, and so all these links will be listed below, so you guys can check out more of George's work and listen to Hood on a Beat and Leela Downs. Thank you again for doing this. I really am so grateful, and it's nice to just hear more about your story. I learned more about you today, and I really hope that all of you watching enjoyed hearing about the creative process and how a musician can grow over time and share with his or her community and use music and creativity as a way to stay sane right now and as a way to stay healthy, and that we can all be creative no matter who we are, what we do. It's a human need for us to make things.
Very important.
Yeah. Thank you again for being here, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Mary. It was a pleasure. I had a blast, and let's get together soon.